Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Before we start with our today's analysis, a quick gentle reminder. In continuation with our knowledge series, today's discussion would be ACST Prevention of Atrocities Act. Tomorrow's discussion would be with respect to coastal plains of India. So please do tune in live on our YouTube channel at 8 p.m. so that you understand everything about this topic. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says we need to protect whistleblowers. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. One of the simplest definitions of the democracy is government of the people, by the people and for the people. But in reality, what happens? It is government of the people. Government is not in reality with what are the people's expectation. Government by the people by giving them some cash, by their oath, and also for the people where they are far away from the people. This is what is happening in reality. To bring this under check, to bring this under control, what we have is one of the reformative laws in the country, which is called as the Right to Information Act. Earlier, we did not have the Right to Information Act, but now we have one of the landmark legislations called as the Right to Information Act, where it is about the transparency in the system. The government of India may come up with number of schemes and programs expecting some transparency from us. So what has the government done? It has introduced demonetization, it has introduced GST, it has introduced Aadhaar card, it has introduced multiple other schemes and programs so that there is transparency and accountability and formalization of the economy. So the government is having a vigilant eyes on the citizens. Similarly, the citizens would also want to know what is happening with the government, and at the same time the citizens should also know how to keep a check on the government as well. One such tool that they have is what is called as right to information. So in case you want to know whether the affairs of the government is in line with the actual intentions of the policy or it is violating from the desired structure in that particular case, you would be able to file an RTI and you would be able to extract the information. What is this right to information in a broader detail has been explained recently in our knowledge series, whose link will also be given in the description box. Kindly look into it. But what will be the focus of today's discussion? The focus would be with respect to the whistleblowers. The focus would be with respect to attack on these activists who are working for all of us. We will try and understand what reforms have to be brought into picture to safeguard these RTI activists. Let us try and understand what is the author trying to convey. When we speak about the right to information, the right to information in the past has unveiled number of corruption scandals. This basically means that as much as the government is giving the information, we also have to take the information from the government. It is at this particular point when people start taking the information from the government, that is when the public authorities will also be held accountable. So public authorities accountability is a direct link with respect to the right to information. What is happening to the public funds? What is the kind of corruption that is present in the system? All of it is taken through this right to information. This is where we have the RTI activist. Who is this RTI activist? Not all of us are free to engage in this public participatory mode. What is this participation? You and I are working. We also have our own commitments in our lives as well. We won't be able to engage and add much to the public contribution. But there are few people who work for you and me. These are called as the RTI activists. So what do? They file applications and they also extract the information, and as and when they extract this information, there might be a particular lobby group which is not happy with this information, and ultimately they threaten these RTI activists. They also curse them as well, and there have been instances where these RTI activists have also been killed as well. So those people who are working for you, me, and also for the country, who are taking information from the government, they're extracting information so that there is transparency in the system, are these RTI activists, and these are also called as the whistleblowers as well. Who are these whistleblowers? A whistleblower is a person who releases some information about the wrongdoing that is existing in the system. Let's say, for example, you have a government servant. This government servant is working within the system. He knows that the government and other authorities are engaging in malpractices. So he, for the sake of the country, for the sake of the public interest, gives out this information. He says that the government is engaging in such an activity which could harm the people as a whole. So a person who is part of the system or he is part of a company who gives out this information is called as a whistleblower. So what exactly is happening of late? What we are witnessing is the killing of the activists. So since the implementation of the RTI, some 100 RTI activists across the countries have been killed and several harassed on a daily basis. If you look at multiple states in India, Bihar ranks first in the number of deaths of the RTI users. As many as 20 RTI users have lost their lives since 2010 in different districts across Bihar. In 2018, 6 RTI users were killed for seeking information related to the functioning of the public programs and institutions. These people who question the government, extract some information and ultimately put it out on the public domain are killed because someone else could be put behind bars. In order to make sure that these people are not killed, in order to make sure that the right to information works as efficiently as possible, what we require is strong legal and institutional safeguards, says this article. So this article currently goes on to say that because these RTI activists have been killed, because the whistleblowers of multiple states have been killed, what we require is safeguards for these people. The article also voices out some concerns as well. What are these concerns? Recently, there was one of the event that happened in Bihar where families of the whistleblowers disclosed that whistleblowers had been working on the issues of public importance and interest, exposing irregularities and corruption, pursuing transparency in the functioning of the public distribution system, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, Anganwadi centers, housing schemes, illegally operating health clinics, and so on. They had been requesting information that should have been mandatorily disclosed to the public under Section 4 of the RTI Act. Family members at the hearing also questioned the abdication of the responsibility by the state government in assisting them to get justice in each case. This clearly points out the bleak picture of the families of the RTI activists as well. So these people who may be killed in this pursuance are also suffering, their families are also suffering. Unfortunately, in multiple cases, the state government is also not supporting their cause. Added to it, there is one of the sections in the Right to Information Act. This is about voluntary disclosure. What is this voluntary disclosure? Let's say, for example, we have a particular act. Under this particular act, the government has safeguarded some data. After a particular period of time, this data on a voluntary basis will have to be unveiled by the government. So even in such cases which automatically voluntarily has to be given by the government, where it is not given, the RTI activists have asked for such information, but then such information would have been very delicate as well. There might be a larger lobbying group as well, where the political parties, where the government or the nexus of the bureaucrats and the business groups might be involved as well, such that if this information comes out in the public domain, it could ultimately harm their own reputation. So to prevent this loss of reputation, they kill the person who is also taking this information. Such has been the pathetic state of affairs because of the strong lobbying group, and as a result, these RTI activists are getting killed. So the family members are currently saying that the government and the executive agencies in some cases are not supportive of their cause. So the author goes on to say that in order to change, in order to bring a change with respect to the right to information, what we require is the state governments to act immediately. What we have to create is a social legal system that recognizes the RTI users under attack as human right defenders. So what are the measures that the government will have to take in the near future? First, the author says state governments must direct law enforcement agencies to expeditiously and in a time bound manner complete investigations in all cases where RTI users are harassed. as we discussed, whenever there is a particular individual or it can be a group seeking for an information, there can be a lobbying group which can threaten them as well. So the minute this person, the RTA activist, goes and files a case in the police station, that has to be taken seriously by the police station and the officers and the investigating agencies in that case in a time bound manner, that they have to give out what this is all about. So within a span of 1 month or 2 months, they have to make sure that this particular issue is addressed. If it is a threat, that person should be arrested and thrown behind bars. And if in an unfortunate incident where the RTA activist is killed, justice should be provided to the victim's family. So as soon as possible, who the perpetrator of crime has to be investigated and ultimately brought under the law books. Second, available evidence clearly shows that information requested by the murdered RTI user was information that should have been mandatorily disclosed in the public domain under Section 4 of the RTA Act. We did discuss about Section 4, where the government on a voluntary basis will have to give out the information. But in most cases, they are not giving this information. So Rajasthan has taken the lead in active disclosure in what is called as Jan Suchana portal, subsequently followed by Karnataka's Mahiti Kanaja, are outstanding examples of practical ways of mandatory disclosure. So these states have this particular policy that whenever this voluntary information has to be given by the government, it has been uploading on this website. So similarly, many other states will have to follow the footsteps of Rajasthan as well as Karnataka. So remember, this can be very important that Rajasthan has what is called as Jan Suchan portal and Karnataka has what is called as Mahiti Kanaja. So this can be an example which many other states can replicate so that we would be able to prevent such issues. Third, in all cases of threats, attacks or killings of the RTI users, the State Information Commission must immediately direct the relevant public authorities to discuss and publicize all the questions raised and the answers given to the user. So what is happening in this particular case? The RTA activist is asking for some information. This information is sent to the Information Commissioner. So he has to give this information. Meanwhile, while he has asked for the information, someone else would have given this information to the lobbying group, and this lobbying group might have killed this person. So what information that this RTA activist had asked for, this should be publicized in the open domain. So when the state information commissioners are giving this information in a public forum, then these lobbying group will in the near future prevent the killing of such activists. Why? Because such information in the near future may also become publicized as well, and this could ultimately threaten the lobbying group. So this should also be taken as the way forward, says the author. Finally, there is an urgent need to enact an effective legislation to protect the whistleblowers. We currently have the Whistleblowers Protection Act of 2014, but it is yet to be implemented. The rules are yet to be sanctioned as well. The rules are yet to come into force as well. Unfortunately, we have the act, but the implementation is not in pace with the reality, and as a result, this Whistleblowers Act of 2014 is also not serving the purpose. We have the Supreme Court of India, which has also asked the government in the past that, dear government, please ensure that you implement this, but then unfortunately, it is yet not implemented in the rightful manner, and the rules are yet not notified. In the past, we also have the Law Commission of India back in the year 2001, which also recommended, in order to eliminate corruption, what we have to protect is the whistleblowers, and these RTA activists are the whistleblowers. They're extracting information, giving out to the public, so they have to be safeguarded. So this recommendation was also given by the Law Commission back in the year 2001. Then we also have the second Administrative Reforms Commission as well. This also recommended that a specific law will have to be enacted to protect the whistleblowers. So what we have to make sure is that the government in the near future implements the Whistleblowers Protection Act, and if need be, suitable amendments will have to be brought into picture so that they are stringent and dare the lobbying group kill these RTA activists. So given this reality, the state governments such as Bihar and Maharashtra, which have recorded the highest number of murder of RTA activists, must introduce their own mechanisms for protecting whistleblowers by enacting a state level Whistleblower Act is what is this article all about. Since the central government may not be taking some of the steps, it is right for the state government to come up with its own share of Whistleblower Protection Act, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says token prohibition takes a toll in Gujarat. The article here is speaking about illicit liquor or the spurious liquor. First, we will understand what is this spurious liquor. Then we will take the examples of the history of hooch tragedies in the past, and we will also discuss how the state government is able to come up with such laws, and we will ultimately discuss what is the way forward with respect to this hooch tragedy. First, we have to understand what is it illicit liquor or the spurious liquor. When you consider the state of Gujarat right now, as many as 40 people have died in several parts of Gujarat, and nearly 50 people are still in the hospital battling for their lives. Why? That is because these people had consumed illicit liquor. This is also called as spurious liquor, and it is also called as hooch in the local language. So when it comes to the alcoholic beverages are made by the fermentation of sugary and the starchy substances followed by distillation to increase the alcohol concentration. The active ingredient in them happens to be ethyl alcohol or ethanol as well. But when it comes to illicit or the spurious liquor that is made at the country level is what is called as hooch. Any alcoholic beverage which are made under unlicensed conditions where the government is not given the permission, that is what is called as illicit liquor. Usually they make use of substandard raw materials, and as a result what happens, they are creating this illicit liquor. So illicit liquor or spurious liquor, which is also called as hooch, is nothing but those who are not given permission by the government, but they make use of substandard raw materials to prepare the alcohol, is what is called as illicit liquor or the spurious liquor. When you consider the legal production of liquor, it nearly takes about 10 days for the complete process. But when it comes to hooch or the illicit liquor, it is produced even in 24 hours as well. Generally, if you are using the legal process, it may take as many as 10 days, but when it comes to illicit liquor, it is produced in 24 hours. Basically, this means that the quality of the beverage, that is the alcohol, is not good, and as a result people who go about consume it may have issues in their body, and there have been instances where they have also passed away as well. What makes it poisonous? Traces of methanol are found in legally made and licensed alcoholic drinks like beer, while country made liquor, when not brewed with care, can contain large quantities of methanol. Sometimes industrial methyl alcohol or denatured spirit, which is a mixture of ethanol and methanol, is added by illicit brewers to save the cost as well. And these people make use of methanol to increase the potency of the liquor. So when methanol gets absorbed in the gastrointestinal tract of the person who is drinking it, it can enter the system through the skin and by inhalation, and methyl alcohol is extremely toxic. 10 ml can cause blindness as well. 30 ml can cause death within 10 to 30 hours. Further, the toxic effects arises from methanol metabolizing in the body to first form formaldehyde. Formaldehyde, which is thought to be a cancer causing agent, is quickly converted into formic acid as well. In the normal course of body activities, like when small quantities of methanol are ingested from fruits and vegetables or produced in traces in the body, formic acid is flushed out of the body during the excretion. When large amounts of methanol enter into the body with copious amounts of spurious liquor, formic acid accumulates in the body tissues, leading to acidosis as well. Such is the impact because of the illicit liquor. Why do people fall prey to such liquor? That is because, let's say for example, in the state of Gujarat or in the state of Bihar, it is regulated, it is banned in multiple states. So as a result, people who would want to consume liquor, they do not have avenues, and as a result they go for the underground market. And as part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section which states in India have imposed imposed a ban on alcohol. Now, if we look into the history of the hooch tragedies, according to a report by ABP Live, 3 people on average die every single day due to spurious liquor poisoning in the country. Lok Sabha released a detailed report of the top 5 states that reported most number of deaths due to consumption of illegal and spurious liquor in the year 2016 to 2020, with Bihar and Chhattisgarh topping the list. According to data, over 6,000 deaths were reported between 2016 and 20 due to consumption of spurious liquor, with the lowest number of deaths in 2020 at 947. There have been examples from the past as well. If we consider the state of Punjab in 2020, nearly 120 people died after consuming spurious liquor in 3 districts of Punjab: Amritsar, Gurdaspur, and Taran Taran. Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand in 2019, more than 110 people died and hundreds of others were hospitalized in one of the worst hooch tragedies in Uttar Pradesh and its neighboring state Uttarakhand in 2019. And in Mumbai in 2015, as many as 103 men died in a span of 4 days in 2015 in the Lakshmi Nagar slum in Mumbai's suburb of Malad. Now the question is, since it has happened in the state of Gujarat, can the state ban the alcohol in the state? Yes, we have one of the directive principles of the state policy, which is duty of the state to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living and to improve public health. The state shall regard the raising of the level of nutrition and the standard of living of its people and the improvement of public health as among its primary duties, and in particular, the state shall endeavor to bring about prohibition of the consumption, except for the medicinal purposes, of intoxicating drinks and of drugs which are injurious to the health. Making use of it, Gujarat has come up with Gujarat Prohibition Law. There has been a ban on the sale of liquor in Gujarat since the year 1960. The dry state prohibits the sale of liquor and only has about 66 government authorized liquor shops which allow consumers with health permits or group permits to purchase the liquor. The Gujarat law entails about 7 to 10 years of jail to accused found dealing in alcohol, and if the person who's consumed this alcohol and that person has passed away, in that case death penalty can also be imposed on the person who supplied this spurious liquor to the person who has passed away. So remember, Gujarat has imposed the ban on liquor, and you have to put on comment section which other states have imposed the ban on. What are the concerns? This has resulted in unregulated production and sale of liquor via the black market and the use of illicit liquor as a substitute due to the lack of sale of over the counter and regulated drinks. Since Gujarat has imposed a ban, many other states have imposed a ban. As a result, what happens? It is happening in the black market, and since it is happening in the black market, there is no check on the production of these illicit liquor, and as a result, when it is supplied to the people, many people drink it and they have passed away. Added to it, police action that allows every such tragedy barely inspires public confidence. Indeed, it conceals the complexity of the administration in protecting the black market for alcohol wherever the prohibition exists. Ideally, it is the police officers who should be bringing a bar to this. They should make sure that such activities should not happen, but there is also an allegation that these police officers are indirectly involved. They are also supporting such lobbying groups, and as a result, they are not able to keep a check of such things that are happening in the state of Gujarat. Another suggestion, the author goes on to say, as of now, the states have imposed complete ban on the alcohol, and as a result, it is working on the black market. Instead of imposing a complete ban, why not regulate it? If we go ahead with the regulation, at least the governments would be getting the revenue. It would be able to impose the taxes as well. As of now, it is happening on the underground and the government is not even generating the revenue, and this is the loss for the state, says the author. So going forward, if this is imposed, that is a ban is imposed, what we require is complete regulation, complete ban on it. There has to be no illicit liquor, but if it cannot be done so, then make sure that regulation happens with respect to the alcohol consumption. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. There are two articles in the Hindu today. One says Supreme Court Collegium reiterated 13 names for the High Court judges. The other article also says no word yet on the next Chief Justice of India. We will gel both these articles together and discuss as one single issue. We have Chief Justice of India N.V. Ramana, who is set to retire on August 26th. However, there is no word in the public domain about the beginning of the process to appoint his successor. Now the question is, who will be the Chief Justice of India? How will he be appointed? So whenever we have the Chief Justice of India who is currently present, when he is moving out of this designation, out of his seat, he recommends an other name to the Ministry of Law and then he pushes off from his designation. So we have the sitting Chief Justice of India who recommends the successor, and the successor will be named, and this will be forwarded to the Ministry of Law and they would be able to make the appointment. So how does this work? This is on the basis of seniority. So when we speak about seniority at the Supreme Court, it is not determined by the age. What do we mean by seniority? The date a judge was appointed to the Supreme Court of India. Let's say, for example, there is a person who is about 55 years of age. He is appointed to the Supreme Court of India, and let's say another person who is about 57 years of age who is also appointed as the judge of Supreme Court of India. But this person who is about 55 years of age is appointed, let's say, in the year 2019. Let's say there is another person who is 57 years of age. He is appointed in the year 2020. So does seniority mean that this person who is of 57 years of age, will he be appointed? No. Seniority basically means when did that judge be appointed as a judge in the Supreme Court. So the date a judge was appointed to the Supreme Court is taken into the picture and not the age of the judge. If two judges are elevated to the Supreme Court on the very same day, in that case, the one who was sworn in as a judge would trump as the Chief Justice of India. If both were sworn in as the judges on the very same day, the one with more years of High Court service would win in the seniority stake, and at the same time, an appointment from the bench, which means he should be a judge, will get an upper hand in place of an appointee from the bar. Let's say, for example, there is a person who is present as a judge of the High Court. He is elevated to the Supreme Court. Or let's say, for example, there is an advocate who is recognized as a judge. He is elevated to the Supreme Court. In this particular case, a person who has served as the judge, he may go on to become the Chief Justice of India. So these are the criterion that is taken up whenever a person has to be appointed as the Chief Justice of India. So the seniority convention tells us who could become the next Chief Justice of India, but how this is to be done is laid out in the memorandum of procedure between the government and the judiciary. So how exactly does it work? We have the Union of Minister of Law. We will seek the recommendations of the outgoing Chief Justice of India as to who would be the next Chief Justice of India. This is sought at the appropriate time, that is near the retirement date of the outgoing Chief Justice of India. The Chief Justice of India should recommend the senior-most judge of the Supreme Court considered fit to hold the office. However, if there are any doubts as to the fitness of the senior-most judge as per the convention, the Chief Justice of India needs to consult the Collegium to decide if a different judge needs to be recommended. What do we mean by it? Usually, it is the Chief Justice of India who is outgoing who will say who will be the next person who will be the Chief Justice of India. But if there is an issue about the physical or the mental fitness, in that case, they have to refer to the Collegium. So it is not just the Chief Justice of India who will decide, but it will be the Collegium, that is the four senior most judges, who will also decide who will be the Chief Justice of India if it is something to do with fitness of the judge. So in this particular backdrop, we have the recommendation which will be given to the Minister of Law. The Minister of Law will then recommend it to the Prime Minister, who then advises the President, and this will be the ultimate process. This is what this article speaks about. The next article speaks about the appointment procedure with respect to the High Court judges as well as the Supreme Court judges. What exactly happens? We have the Supreme Court of India, which refers these names to the government. The government may not be happy with few names. So what do? They ask the Supreme Court to reconsider these names. So if the Supreme Court reconsiders and sends it back to the government, in that particular case, the government will have to appoint them as judges, whether it is the High Court or the Supreme Court, and the government has no say, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with respect to both these articles. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Kerala tops in holding assembly sittings in 2021. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. Whenever we speak about parliament or the state legislative assembly, we have something called as the session. How many sessions we have? We have about 3 sessions: the budget session, the monsoon session, so on and so forth. So a session is the period beginning with the date when the parliament commences to sit. What is a sitting? A sitting is the meeting of the house within a session. So we have the monsoon session, we have the budget session, so within which if parliamentarians, if the MLAs sit, they also discuss. That is what is called a sitting. Where is it in the Indian Constitution? We have one of the important articles called as Article 164. It says sessions of the state legislature, prorogation and dissolution. The governor shall from time to time summon the house or each house of the legislature of the state to meet at such time and place as he thinks fit, but 6 months shall not intervene between its last sitting in one session and the date appointed for its first sitting in the next session. So Article 174 of the Indian Constitution clearly specifies about the sitting when it comes to the state legislatures. Why are sittings of an assembly very important? That is because when we speak about separation of powers, we have the legislature, executive and judiciary. Let's move out the judiciary. What we have is the legislature and the executive. Who will keep a check on the executive? It is the legislatures. So legislatures are primarily responsible for passing laws and approving the budget. The legislatures through various mechanisms acts as the overseeing body. It is they who keep them under the check. So sittings are very important because it is the legislature which keep a check on the activities of the executive. Whenever there is inadequate sittings, whenever there are not much sittings, in that case the legislature would not be able to keep a check on the executive. There is one of the loopholes when it comes to this particular article. What is it? One of the reasons for decreasing sittings of the assembly is due to lack of independence of the legislature to decide its own sittings. In India, the governor of the state convenes the assembly. That happens on the recommendation of the cabinet, thereby giving the state government control over the legislature's sittings. So in this particular case, this article currently goes on to say that in the state of Kerala, what they have had is the maximum sittings. Sittings means that which happens within a session. There they would be able to discuss about the business of the state assembly. So in the present context, we have Kerala, which slipped to 8th slot in the holding assembly sittings during the first wave of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, returned to the top spot in 2021. So we have Kerala at the top, followed by Odisha, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, Himachal Pradesh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, Assembly and Gujarat. So if we have to speak, there is something called as the minimum rule. What is this minimum rule? The National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution 2000 to 2002, headed by former Chief Justice of India M.N. Venkatachalaya, had described the houses of the state or the union territory legislatures with less than 70 members. For example, Puducherry should meet at least for 50 days, and in any other state they should be able to meet for 90 days. So the sittings are important so that they can discuss what should be the policy initiatives and they can also question the executive. So the National Commission for Review of the Working had clearly said that there should be sittings for a minimum of 50 days if there are less than 70 members, and it should be for as much as 90 days if there are more number of legislatures sitting in the state. In fact, we also have number of states as well, where the states such as Manipur, Odisha, Punjab and Uttar Pradesh have laid down a minimum number of sitting days through the rules of the procedure. varying from 40 days in Punjab to 90 days in Uttar Pradesh. In 2005, Karnataka even came out with a law, the Karnataka Conduct of Government Business in the State Legislature Act, with the stipulation of a minimum of 60 days when the Congress Janata Dal coalition was in power. However, the five states observed this norm more in the breach. In 2021, apart from the 43 days of sittings in Odisha and 40 days in Karnataka, the figures for Uttar Pradesh, Manipur, and Punjab were 17, 16, and 11, says this article. So this article basically says that in the state of Kerala they have had more sittings, and followed by which what we have is the state of Odisha. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. As attacks on RTA applicants continue unabated, there is need for comprehensive, not ad hoc reforms. Examine. India needs a more honest discussion on the risks and benefits of alcohol prohibition. Analyze. So please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.